So let me share an image of this that was part of my lecture, which was called "Correcting Omissions of the Tetragrammaton in Medieval Hebrew Bible Manuscripts." And I actually had the opportunity in the January of 2020 to examine the Aleppo Codex directly using a 50x microscope. And one of the instances I found in which God's name was written incorrectly and then corrected was in 2 Samuel chapter 12, verse 15. And there the scribe originally wrote, Yehieh, he will be, which in the context is completely nonsensical. And it's obviously supposed to be Yud-He Vav-He. And what the scribe did, as you can see here in the image from the microscope, is the second Yud, it's only supposed to be one Yud, he originally wrote a second Yud, and that second Yud he then drew over the letter Vav, superimposing it over the Yud. So this is what we call reshaping letters. We knew this was done in the Dead Sea Scrolls, and now we can see it was done in the Tanakh, and it was done not only with regular letters, but a letter of God's name.
Right.
So yeah, pretty cool.
You pointed out that was, according to some Jewish legal codes, that wasn't good. Because
well, you definitely wouldn't be allowed to do that in a Torah scroll.
Right.
It wouldn't be considered kosher in a Torah scroll. But the Aleppo Codex isn't a Torah scroll, it's a codex. And look, one of the things I showed in my PhD dissertation is that not only did they reshape a letter of God's name, but contrary to what I was previously told and thought, they erased the actual letters of God's name in the Aleppo Codex. And this is an important point I think I've shared before, but I was originally told by a scholar who spent years examining the manuscripts or the actual Aleppo Codex that they never erased the vowel or accent of God's name. That's what I was told. And I said, I wish I could check that for myself. Well, as part of my dissertation work, I was able to check it for myself. And I saw not only did they erase the accents of vowels of Yud He Vav He, there's 5 instances I found where they erased the actual letters in toto completely. Which tells you that this is probably not your typical rabbinical scribe. David, why wouldn't a rabbinical scribe erase God's name?
Well, the second commandment would be not to take God's name in vain, which would include erasing. So,
okay, well, they derive it from Deuteronomy 12:4, where it says, talks about destroying. In 12:3, it says, destroy the places where the pagan gods put their names. I'm paraphrasing, obviously. And it says, don't do so to the Lord your God, to Yud He Vav He, your God. And in the context there, what it means is don't worship God the way that the pagans worship their gods. But the rabbis took this to mean don't erase God's name the way you erase the gods' names of the pagan gods. And so they took this to mean you're not even allowed to erase a single letter of God's name. And the scribes of the Aleppo Codex, I say scribes because there were 2 scribes, Shlomo ben Buyah and Aharon ben Asher, as far as I can tell, both of them erased, although it's hard to know which one sometimes. But for sure, Aharon ben Asher, and it seems also Shlomo ben Buyah erased the actual letters of Yud He Vav He. So
wow, you didn't say that in the talk.
No, because my talk this year in SPL was about correcting omissions, not about correcting extraneous instances or erasing. That was a talk I gave at SPL in 2018 in Helsinki.
Just for context, so that our listeners can know what you just said. So can you please tell us about Ben Asher and how important he was?
So Aharon ben Asher was considered to be he's called Master of the Scribes. And Maimonides famously said that when he sat down to determine what are the rules for writing a Torah scroll, he based it on the manuscript of Ben Asher, which today we call the Aleppo Codex. Back then it hadn't reached Aleppo yet. It was still in, first it was in Tiberias, then it was in Jerusalem, then it was in Cairo or Fustat, and then eventually it arrived in Aleppo and now Jerusalem. And a third of it is missing. Who knows where that is? But so in the 12th century, Maimonides said that historically people have gone to the Aleppo Codex to check their Bibles against it. And so I decided if that was done for hundreds of years, I'm going to base my Bible on that as well, my Torah on it as well. Even though it's not a Torah scroll, he'll base the rules of writing a Torah scroll on the Aleppo Codex. And that was pretty much accepted, at least in theory, it's been accepted until modern times. In practice, nobody writes a Torah scroll based on the Aleppo Codex because we're missing the Torah portion. But for example, there are many Yemenite codexes that say this was checked against the manuscript of Ben Asher. Whether it really was or not, it's a different question. But for the last 1,000 years, it's been considered the definitive authoritative text of the Bible.
So Nelson, I would like to add to this that not even the exact details that Nehemia was saying during his talk, but just the fact that I had no idea that Nehemia has held or turned the pages of arguably the two most important Bibles in the world, which would be of the Hebrew Bible for sure, is the Aleppo Codex and Leningrad, which is complete, even though Aleppo is not complete. So, Nehemia, this was amazing to hear that you were working with these texts and using the microscopes you were using and really finding new things in these ancient texts. That for me was mind blowing.
Yeah.